Hey everybody, it's me, W. Kamau. Welcome to episode 11 of Who's With Me. My guest today is Maria Bamford. Before we get too deep into this, I want to give you some stand-up dates, the same ones I've been giving you. Stamford, Connecticut, September 25th and 26th. Stanford University, October 1st. Bellingham, Washington on November 13th. You can get those tickets at wkamaubell.com, wkamaubell.com. Get them like we vote in Chicago, early and often. So my guest today on the podcast is Maria Bamford. We'll talk about her in a little bit. Before I talk about her, she's a woman in comedy, but I want to talk about a couple other women in comedy through the lens of the White House Correspondents Dinner that was rescheduled and just happened last Friday. The weird thing is I didn't know it was rescheduled until after it was over, and on Threads, people were talking about it a lot, and I was like, man, how the mighty have fallen. That White House Press Correspondents Dinner. Remember the heyday, the Obama era? That was also the heyday of Twitter. When the White House Correspondents Dinner happened, it was trending worldwide. We were all on there. I don't know if you were, but a lot of me, like if you were somebody who cared about media or politics or making fun of award shows, then you tuned in, you live tweeted the Press Correspondents Dinner. That was that era where, like, big comedians wanted to be there. Obama was killing at the Press Correspondents Dinner. Comedians sometimes had problems following Obama at the Press Correspondents Dinner because Obama was too funny. It's also back when Obama roasted I was going to say a young Donald Trump, but a slightly less old Donald Trump. And Donald Trump sat there and was like, oh, wait till I'm president. And that's where we saw the exclamation point on Trump's villain origin story. So it happened this past Friday, and it just got me thinking about it, because the thing I saw when people were talking about it on Threads was that it sucked, basically. I guess how to say that. So if you don't know about the White House Press Correspondents Dinner, since 1921, it is an event that is hosted by the White House Correspondents Association, which is journalists who cover the White House as their association. And since 1921, they've had a dinner where they raise money for the next generation of journalists, and they also hand out awards to current journalists who are doing good journalism. And they've always had entertainment, but also they generally invite the president, and every president has gone at least once during their term, except for when Trump was president the first time. He didn't go to any of them because he knew. So it's this thing that's been happening for over 100 years, but really only sort of started to get mainstream attention. The first time it got mainstream attention was when Colbert hosted it when George W. Bush was president, and Colbert took that opportunity to not lightly roast in a comedy way, but spit roast him. That was back when Colbert was still doing his character of Stephen Colbert, not Stephen Colbert, Stephen Colbert, who was like the Bill O'Reilly character from the Colbert Report. And so he went out there, and if you watch the footage, Colbert is basically bombing, but he's bombing the way that like Lenny Bruce bombed, or like George Carlin or Richard Pryor bombing. When you're bombing because you want to take the crowd down with you. It wasn't quite the way Bill Hicks used to bomb, because Bill Hicks would bomb and chase you out of the room at the same time. But yeah, if you don't know Bill Hicks, please Google him. But yeah, so Colbert just is like, I'm gonna go over here and I'm gonna like just say what I want to say, and if I bomb, I bomb, and that's what it is. But then that was in like 2006. But then in the Obama era, it really started to become this thing because Obama was such a celebrity that everybody started watching it and everybody wanted to be there. And because it became such an event, and because Obama was a Democrat, it sort of was very Democrat leaning in the performances and how people talked. But then Trump became president, and he knew I shouldn't go there, so he didn't go. And he sometimes he would send his staff to go in his behest, and then in 2020 COVID canceled it, and then we had Biden, and it sort of came back to fore a little bit. And I've known people who performed on it. They always have a comedian who goes up last. Generally, in the last since like the 80s, they've had a comedian go up last to sort of close the evening out. And I've had friends do it. Hassan Minhaj has done it. Wanda Sykes, who I'm friendly with, I'm not trying to claim friends, but she's done it. Larry Wilmore. I think Trevor Noah did it. So yeah, I've known people who've done it. Sometimes people online are like, Kamau, you should. No, thank you. And that's what I'm talking about today. I've always thought the event was just sort of weird. Not that I don't think people just because the role of the press is to be the fourth estate, to hold politicians, and specifically the president, to account for what he or she, it's never been a she, what he has done. So when you put them in the room together and they sort of like are having like a party together, it just feels weird. Even if I like the president, it just feels weird to be that cozy with him. Maybe I'm the weird one. I don't know. It's fine. If you like it, that's good. And like I said, if my friends do it, I'm not criticizing them at all. It feels weird to me. It's, as my daughter would say, not for me. But I would watch it. But when Trump got back into office, the seam started to really burst, and it really started to be clear how weird this was, because it's not an event for the president, but the president is often invited. And it's kind of like if your parents are divorced and you invite your dad to your mom's birthday party, it's just going to throw the vibe off. Like it's just going to. So Trump is a vibe killer of this event, and it's not his event. So I don't get why they have to invite him, or they feel like they have to invite him. I get, if the press wants to give out awards and have a party and raise money, do that. But if the president in office is actively making it clear at every turn that he's an authoritarian, why are you inviting him? So during Trump's current presidency, the White House Press Association hasn't really known how to handle it. And you really saw the seam start to bust apart during Trump's first presidency when he didn't go to the dinner. I think it was 2017, but all of his people did. And the White House Correspondents Association hired comedian Michelle Wolf, who had been on The Daily Show, to be the comedian that night. And she went up there much more like George Carlin or Colbert when he did it, or, and she just sort of let everybody know, I'm not happy with any of you. And she was funny. She was super funny, but she wasn't killing in the room because she was very clear, I'm not really with any of y'all. The press, the Trumpers, this is not my thing, but it was funny. She was very satirical and very political. And she did a run of jokes where she made fun of Sarah Huckabee Sanders, and the press immediately said that she was making fun of Sarah Huckabee Sanders' looks, which she wasn't. She was making fun of Sarah Huckabee Sanders for lying a lot, but she made a joke about Sarah Huckabee Sanders' makeup, but they turned that into she was making fun of her looks, but she was really using the makeup. She didn't even really make fun of the makeup. She was using Sarah Huckabee Sanders' use of makeup as a way to make fun of her lies. I'm not going to do the joke. You can Google this. But the idea being that, like, the press decided they wanted to get Sarah Huckabee Sanders back, even the quote unquote left-leaning press like the New York Times. And then the White House Correspondents Association released a statement afterwards, sort of basically like, not even apologizing, sort of groveling before MAGA and Sarah Huckabee Sanders and really throwing Michelle Wolf under the bus. And Michelle Wolf was like, I'm not going under that bus. And she called him out repeatedly and still has to this day. And that was the moment where you realized, all these pieces don't fit together. If you want to have a political comedian whose job it is to make fun of politics, you can't put the politicians in the room unless you're okay with the politicians getting made fun of by people who actually give a shit. Not all political comedians are making fun of both sides equally or whatever, or just doing a light roasting. Some comedians actually give a fuck about this, like this guy right here. So when they tried to throw Michelle Wolf under the bus, the White House Correspondents Association, I was like, well, I will never do anything to do with this. I was even on CNN that night talking about it. Like, I was like, this is not cool. So then fast forward, Trump's back in office again. Last year, the White House Correspondents Association decides that they're going to put comedian Amber Ruffin as the headliner of the event. And Amber Ruffin, you may know her from Seth Meyers. She had her own show on Peacock for a while. Amber Ruffin, Black queer woman. She's great. She's fantastic. And but then they started to get pushed back from MAGA, probably because a Black queer woman was going to host the event. And so the White House press correspondents folks canceled Amber Ruffin's booking. And a statement was released saying that they didn't want to book somebody who was divisive, because Amber Ruffin had said something on a podcast, they didn't want to book somebody who's divisive, which to me, Amber Ruffin is about as divisive as like a designated driver who also lets you have control of the radio. She's not divisive at all. She's delightful. So that was last year. And then this year, we know a few months ago, they tried to have the event and shots rang out in the hotel. So they had to shut it down. So then they had it a couple nights ago. And it just sounds like it was a fucking awful nightmare. Trump gave an hour-long speech. He He made fun of CNN's Caitlin Collins, who I know a little bit, but made fun of her by doing the classic, like, you're pretty and you should smile more. And he also made a joke about her being Dylan Mulvaney, who's a trans woman, which got nothing in the room if you watch it. He went up there for an hour, which, even Obama, who could have done an hour, did about 20 minutes maybe. Like, it's just, and he also joked about running for a fourth term, or maybe he announced it. It's hard to know with Trump. When is it a joke, when it is not? And then afterwards, again, people who were like watching it and live tweeting it were like, why is the press still in the room? Why are the press still sitting there for that? And Wolf Blitzer, when he gave an award to the Wall Street Journal, called out Trump because Trump had doxed these Wall Street Journal reporters. But again, it just as somebody who's watching the outside, it seems like, why aren't you like standing up and walking out? Why aren't you throwing things? Why aren't you turning your back on him? I'm not saying it has to get violent, but just like they just sit there and sort of deal with their dad ruining their mom's birthday party. Like, I don't get it. I wrote about this on Substack. You can check it out on my Substack. It's also called Who's With Me. I don't get it. Afterwards, there was footage of like journalists talking to Stephen Miller, who's the battery in Trump's back, the Nazi battery in Trump's back. And journalists a couple journalists just sort of talking to Stephen Miller and like laughing, like, ha, 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 in a sort of casual way. And maybe that's how you work him as a source, but it's just the definition of a bad look. It's just the definition of a bad look. As my LGBTQ community would say, it doesn't look good to kiki with Stephen Miller. I hope I used that correctly. So that's what I wrote about on Substack this week. I just don't know. I just feel like the headline on my Substack is "Rest in Peace to the White House Press Correspondents Dinner, 1921 to 2026." Since I declared roast dead, I thought I could declare this dead, since people loved when I declared the roast dead, and I'm using that in scare quotes. Anyway, this week our guest is Maria Bamford. Maria Bamford is a stand-up comedian. I've known her for many, many years. We've never sat down for a long talk like this. It was a total delight. Maria Bamford is known about talking about mental health in her act. She's also known for being an incredible voice actress and character actor in her stand-up comedy. We also talked about how Judd Apatow is making a documentary about her, but she's making him pay her, which I don't know if that's journalistically how it works. Actually, I know it's not how it works, but anyway, it's very fun and good for her for getting her money. We also talked about generally being a comedian and how money works and how you have to think about money and how people don't think about money. We also talked about how Maria, much like me, is not a comedian for everybody, and so how that has affected her life and career. She talks about her friend Jackie Cation, who are one of her best friends, who's more of a comedian for everybody. We also talked about Maria going through a divorce, and she really very lovingly talks about going through a divorce, and you'll get into that. But we also it's like at some point we're just chatting. It's just two comedians sitting around talking about mortgages, basically, but in a way that it's to support each other. So I love Maria Bamford. Enjoy my conversation with Maria Bamford.